questions. It seems that there is a strike at the moment, which means that some of the people who would have liked to attend this session will not attend it, at least in time, because there is a subway connection and subway is one. Too bad, but I cannot do anything about it. We will start with the presentation on history of a Dutch mental asylum. There are two authors in this presentation, Johann Louw, which will give the presentation, and then there's co-author Kees Bertels, who will then be active in the question and answer session as far as I understand. Anyways, you have 20 minutes and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm sure you can hear me, that I don't have to try and work the mic. You remind me, I think it is of in Shakespeare's Richard III, where he's taught until it goes, and all ye gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed that they were not here. Okay. Around 1900, it's an interesting, it's a crucial period. Do you want me to use them? Okay. Now I'm probably going to be too loud. Okay. Around 1900, a crucial period in the, shall we say, the Western world, or Europe, for national systems of healthcare. And what we stumbled across is that in 1895, an asylum for the insane, roughly translation of krankzinnige gesticht, was constructed on the outskirts of Leiden. And let me go and give you. Now it does it on the screen, but not on my screen, but not on that screen. It just did it right now when you.
Yes. We tested it just.
We tested it, and I'm going to carry on while. It's just a matter of if it's not projecting there. Let's see.
I should close it down and start it up again.
Because it's a double screen again.
Close one down, or okay. I'll carry on talking. We can catch up a little later. So in 1895, in the outskirts of Leiden, a small asylum was built by the municipality or the city council. I'll come back to that in a moment. So this we thought was an interesting small-scale local development that would be nice to look at. Partly because, and I'll show you that in a moment, Kees's house is literally around the corner from this institute, from this hospital. So we thought, here is truly an opportunity for a local history. So, local, small-scale history for us. So, let's start. I will show you on the screen in a moment. Item 1 for us is to just give you a very quick, brief three contextual factors. There are more, but as you can imagine, we can't deal with all of them. So we'll just want to mention 3 important contextual historical factors that should be taken in account here.
This is allemaal.
You need my assistance to identify. There we are. Now, well, hang on. Let's just see if it moves on. That was the problem. Yeah. Okay. This is Leiden, just in case Leiden, we're talking
The white
about...
spot on the left.
What do you see on the left?
The
No,
white-
don't worry now about small things. Leiden, just to at least if you don't know, okay. So there is the outline of our talk, and I go to immediately to these three contextual contexts. The first, and you will hear that the importance of that in a moment, the interplay or the difference between the levels of government, state, local authority, and province, because this is an interesting and important factor. Leiden, or the state, the Dutch state, around 1900, a lack of money, shall we say, not much investment in the mental health services. Leiden, comparatively, is a rich city by then because of the history of its textile industry. So here, the liberal bourgeois of Leiden city decided to construct this mental asylum on the outskirts of the city. So that's one contextual factor. The second one is that the concept of insanity, as we know, as we all really know, moves around. It's not static. So what we see at the time is that one overarching concept of insanity, it starts to be broken up into different subcategories, and that history, of course, we still see with us today. So the change in the concept of insanity, and then thirdly, in Holland or the Netherlands, you always, if you have to talk about these things, about anything, you have to talk about religion. Roman Catholic, Protestant. What we see in the Roman Catholic sections of the community versus the Protestant, they all had their own pillar of mental health care. They were shall we call them asylums, or facilities rather, for Roman Catholics, and another one for Protestants. They look quite different. We don't have time to go into all that. This one is a third stream, religiously neutral. So this is not from the, this is from the, shall we say, the city council, with a very significant input of the university, linked to the efforts of one person. So those are the three contextual factors that we need to at least consider all the time in this history. The three levels of government, the shifting conceptions of mental illness or madness or insanity, and then the religious factor. So now you've seen what we will do, so there we go. Those were the three factors. There's the present day Google map of the, let me just scoot over here. Sorry, no. That green area there is the modern day depiction of the asylum grounds. You can see it's in a nice estate, green, still, tranquil, and so forth. And if I'm not mistaken, here lives Kees, if you want to go and pay him a visit after.
The white line is the autostrada from Amsterdam to The Hague.
Okay, so that's the place was called ESHHS, and that's the way it looks like today. That's the site, and it so happens that when in 1895 the city decided to build this ESHHS facility, there is still a small castle on the estate, and outside the castle you can find Descartes' statue, because he lived there between 1641 and 1643, just as a complete aside to our story. Good. You can see if the site is close to Leiden. It's in present day it's near Oostgeest, it's in Oostgeest. In fact, let me just point out to you at the top there. important to see the specific place. The top there is the ESHHS municipal office. And that is the original villa of the mental asylum. No snide comments about the municipality being housed in the old mental asylum would be invited. Okay. Now, the buildings, quickly. This is ESHHS. This is what was built in 1895. Pavilions. If those of you familiar with asylum architecture, this is, and I'll show you some examples in a moment. This is fairly standard. Pleasant, fairly large-scale buildings. The first patients arrived in 1897, and they are housed in pavilions like this. They are mostly for poorer patients or people. That's also an interesting question, what do you call them? Some pay and some don't. So exactly how we can work out later. The reason for that was that the municipality, city council, wanted to avoid the impression that this is a place for the elite, that only paying people can get there. But some paid and some don't. Exactly how is for another day. Then in 1903, let me just see if what's, sorry, okay, let me just go back there. Now, when we started this, we thought, let's go and take a look at these pavilions, because the architecture is really interesting. That's what we found. They're gone. These buildings have all been demolished, and that is now the park where the pavilion stood, which I'll come back to at the end, is actually interesting in its own right, that it disappears. That is, in 1903, it builds Rijngeest. You can ask Kees about Kees, what all these geests are. That's the villa, that's the seat of the city council. It's a sanatorium. It's called a sanatorium, and of course, as those of you know the history of mental asylums, it is really to house neurasthenics, the slightly better off people. Voluntary, they pay, and they are housed there. And you can see that is a slightly better looking facility than the pavilions. Not dramatically so, but this is where the better off people who have neurasthenia will come and check themselves in. It's completely voluntary. On the other, let me also say that in the ESHHS one, for the poor people, that was also regarded as voluntary. And that's just a closer look at the Jugendstil style of the building. Now, my point is simply that that is not unusual in the beginning of the 20th century. This is very typical. Here is Trieste, and this is a villa for paying patients. And here, also from Trieste, this is a pavilion for semi-agitated poor folks. Not bad, you have to say. It's certainly, let me see, it's certainly not that. These facilities play off against the old-fashioned corridor-style mental asylums of the 19th century, often called the Kirkbride asylum structures. And they look like that. They're massive, there's a corridor that connects them all. And these buildings in Western Europe, in the UK and in the States, these are supposed to be set against the Kirkbride model that we see here. The idea, of course, of these pavilions and villas, the institute in itself must be a healing factor. The fact that people live in this building must be healing to them. Of course, this kind of an arrangement also made it possible to begin in tune with the changing understanding of the category insanity, This then allows for different insane populations to be housed differently. The architecture plays a very important role then in that. I'm certain I'm telling you things that you already know. So now you say, okay, but what happened to, what do people do? What was done to them? What's the treatment? And there are really only three, mainly two, in fact. We are limiting ourselves to anything up to the First World War. You will, in the 1920s, you start to see big differences in treatment opportunities for people housed in mental asylums. So up till the First World War, this is it. Bed rest. Why put people in bed? Almost all the treatments to calm the person. This is an agitated person. You must calm the person down. Tranquil, quiet, confined to bed. This will be good. This will be the treatment that will restore the mind to its healthy condition. Note also, once you have bed rest or bed as a treatment, the architecture follows. Or maybe you can say, well, the architecture may lead. Well, one has to look at it by itself. Here is a room from 1910 in the US, and you can see this begins to look like a hospital. So the consequence is these people are really sick. They're not just putting things. These people are sick, so they're in a hospital and they're in bed. They're also in bed and they're calm. They rest. Tranquility. Restore. Hydrotherapy. There are various forms of hydrotherapy. We only found these two. The one in placing people in the bath. If you look at the history of hydrotherapy, you will see that there's much more severe treatments that are available before this. Hydrotherapy and wet packs that you wrapped in a pack and you are forced to rest. Keep in mind that hydrotherapy is expensive. The water has to be heated to not to belabor the point. And for this asylum, it was certainly a factor that it is an expensive treatment. 28 degrees was the recommendation. I won't say anything about medical conditions, medicines, tranquilizers, if you can call them. That again is a little bit beyond our brief. Now, on the margins, we begin to see discussions on psychoanalysis in the person of this man there, Gerbrandus Jelgersma. He's the director of the institute. He's a professor of psychiatry. And we see him starting to open the door for a discussion of psychoanalysis. In fact, he mentions psychoanalysis quite extensively in his address when he was appointed as director of the University of Leiden. And apparently Freud was tremendously impressed and excited to have a leading medic talk about psychoanalysis at a formal academic presentation. And apparently Freud offered to come and give a lecture at Leiden as a result of that. But the small matter of the First World War intervened. A quick comment, when we mention this, there is actually no psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic treatment in the asylum. This is on the edges of practice, not of practice in the asylum. Okay. Quick, yeah, I'm with you. Quick summary. This very quick overview. What do we have? We painted for you a picture of a small local asylum, Dutch local authority, beginning of the 20th century. Secondly, it by and large fits in with asylums built at the same time in Northern Europe, which is, I think, in itself quite interesting. The treatment, rather rudimentary, but again, following the practice of Northern Europe examples. So far, so good. We stopped there with history. While we were doing it, we were actually struck, but what about the future? Because if you follow, and we actually didn't so much follow it, we kind of discovered it en passant, that in the last 25 years, there is actually a tremendous growth in the construction of purpose-built mental asylums. It is kind of counterintuitive to us, maybe not to you if you know more. Anyway, the persistence of these state mental hospitals, or psychiatric hospitals as you would call them there, is really for us an intriguing future of this. For example, here is one recently built in the Netherlands, just to stick with the Netherlands for a moment. Here is one built in 2019 in South Africa. I was surprised, well, I knew of course that it was being built, but I was really surprised, given our state economy, that this is done at such a scale. Here is one of the most modern, or one of the, not most modern, but most admired architectural designs for psychiatric hospitals in Denmark, in Helsingør, by the firm Bjarke Inglis. They had this to say when they built this hospital. After having read the brief, we were certain the staff was definitely schizophrenic. One long contradiction, that's actually the point I just want to make. One long contradiction, and this is in 2002, and I think if you look at the modern hospitals being built now, it's exactly the same thing. One long contradiction. And if you look at the Endegeest and Rijngeest, and if you look at hospitals built around the beginning of the 20th century, one long contradiction. So think about mental health services, the role of these state-supported mental asylums as an interesting topic for your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Johann. Very interesting presentation. So it's now time for discussion. Questions? Please.
Why the haste? Why the haste? He said I should ask you about the geest, oostgeest, and why is it called the geest?
Geest is een Ouders term for zumpf, water, very bad.
But there it refers to a piece of land.
Okay.
It was a piece of land set aside by the state or by the municipality. They were called geest lands. So oostgeest, Endegeest, Rijngeest, it refers to a piece of land.
The Leiden municipality started first to buy parks in that region. That's one of the ideas how to medicate crazy people, not only arrest, but the nature, bring them into nature. Yes. Yes?
Yeah, I just, well, if you have any numbers, I would be interested. How many people were treated in this given hospital, and what was the usual length of staying there for the patients?
It was
I
built
mean, if you have any.
Yes. It was built for 250 patients.
Okay.
Yes, And in the first year there were only 150, but after that the whole capacity is fulfilled.
Yeah,
Yes.
I see. Regarding, I have a comment also regarding your last remark about the future. In Hungary, the biggest state-run mental hospital, which was actually built in 1870s as a coronation present to Franz Joseph, the king. The king received the money to build the hospital when he was coronated. Now that existed for for 140 years, and it was closed down not by Mr. Orbán, the resident conservative government, but by the liberal Minister of Health 20 years ago, and his argument was incredibly interesting for the history of our field. He said that there won't be any more hospitals where psychiatrists, neurologists, psychologists, and internists and biochemists are together. This is too much concentration. So actually his claim was against interdisciplinarity in dealing with mental health. He said that that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes, and closed it down.
Just here.
Yeah, here.
Please.
Here.
Thanks for your presentation. I think this architectural aspect was central in your work, and I imagine that you did some comparisons between some different hospitals during this time, during the 19th century. How much hospitals you try to compare this kind of architectural structure, and this hospitals belongs to what countries? I would like to know more about this comparison, this work of comparison.
The miraculous point is that behind this ESHHS, in reality there were three streams in Holland. You had the Protestants, yes, in two ways, the strong and the lenient. You had the Roman Catholics, and you had a kind of cultural liberals. What we saw here, that was the last pillar. Yes. So JHHS was the first one who thought that religion can't have a role in betterment the situation of man. Yes. The interesting point is that the other two, the Protestants and the Catholics, had to wait for the building up of university for help the transition from Seelenkunde to psychology, and from psychology to psychiatry. Yes. Dus in that respect, you can see behind the walls of the home, but if this is the first trial in Holland to make psychiatry totally without any religion as a way of embetterment the soul. Especially in countries where religion is very famous, there is the trouble to make a split between the soul as an entrance to God and to your inner life, and the soul as a religious new dimension in looking to people. And that's behind the whole fight in Holland. And especially the Catholics had a lot of problems to think that there can be a psychology, a zielkunde, what not will say that the body and the mind of man are doomed, or to work with it means that you hold religion out of these institutions. And for that reason, it endures in Holland to 1940, before the Roman Catholic University of Nijmegen accepted psychology in a modern sense. Yes. And that's the reason why the neutral way of JHHS, that was the first opening to modern psychology in Holland.
Okay, one very quick question.
Well, okay, I cannot come to you, you can come to me. It's a brief question. given your emphasis on architecture, did you go and look for documents from the late 19th century about this specific institution? Why was it built like this? Because it looks rather prestigious, not just pavilions, etc., but it also was probably meant to radiate a good atmosphere, radiate some, prestige to the local community, maybe.
Because it was made by a bourgeois elite, yes? One of the ideas was that behind modern buildings and behind the Jugendstil outfit of that, there's an idea that aesthetics are one of the rules to save the soul. Yes.
There's one more small
Can I just, we are looking for them.
Okay, that's good. That would be very interesting to find them.
Just a little brief comment, because also in the south of Europe, in Italy, there were a lot of asylums, very small and regular and quiet asylum in early 20th century. In Rome we have an asylum, and the psychiatrist, the main psychiatrist, also had personal clinic in Italy. And for an example, in south of Italy, in a small town, we have two asylums. We have a lot of net of asylums in Italy. This kind of asylum. So it's not a phenomenon just of the north.
No.
It's a phenomenon of the Europe in early 20th century.
So our invitation would be, please get people interested in these
No,
places.
but in Italy there is a lot of literature about
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for the presentation. We move on.